Hey, before we get started, we have two exciting announcements. One, we have a Facebook page. We just made it, and you can find the page at facebook.com/Significant Brothers Podcast, or you can simply search Significant Brothers in the search bar and hopefully be able to find us. Please give us a like. We'd really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you guys on there. Two, we have a beautiful new logo by the ever-talented Nate Knoth. He is a good friend of mine and a better artist. Is your company looking for a logo? A band looking for a cover art that'll stun your fans? Take your blog, band, startup, or whatever idea you have in your head from good to great with Nate's art. You can see his impressive collection of work at instagram.com/goldwellstudios. That is Goldwell Studios on Instagram. And he can be contacted through Nate at goldwellstudios.com. All right, back to the show.
Welcome to Significant Brothers. It's siblings shooting the breeze, one topic at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Chase.
I'm Anna.
And I'm Kray.
Everyone remembers the year 1080, correct?
Like it
Yes.
was yesterday.
So there's this person, or at least a group of people. They're called Christians. I think we're all familiar with that ethnic group of people.
Yeah, if you want to call an ethnic group of people.
That group of people. I can kind of see where they're coming with this one. But they all thought that Jesus was going to come back in the year 1000 AD. So they predicted the end of the world. And what happens when people think that's the end of the world? They quit their jobs, and they dispose of their belongings, and they abandon their homes. And then the year 1000 came, and the world is still around. And then they remembered that Jesus was going to come back 1,000 years after he died, and he was 33 years old. And so they changed the prediction to AD 1033.
Oh, wait. For a second, I thought you were saying 1080 AD. But 1000 AD makes more sense.
1000, the year of our Lord.
Okay, there we go.
February 1, 1524. London astrologers freaked everybody out when they interpreted the alignment of planets in the constellation of Pisces, which is a fish, to mean that everyone would be wiped out by a massive flood. Tens of thousands of people sought refuge in higher grounds, and some even built arks. The Great Flood never came.
Wait, what year was this?
This was 1524.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is like a list, like Anna's misconceptions list.
Yes.
Shut up,
Hey.
okay? Hey.
Hey, sorry, what was so special about the year 1524?
Well, that was just a London astrologers freaked everybody out when they interpreted the alignment of planets in a constellation of Pisces, which is a fish. They're like, oh, it's gonna flood because it's
Had
a
it never
fish
been
in the
Pisces
sky.
before?
Oh.
I think it was just certain alignments with our own planets in our solar system with this constellation in the sky. Which I didn't know everyone was into astrology so much back then.
Well, it was the only science they really had. That's
Yeah,
not
I was
true.
like,
That's not true
There's
at all.
There's a girl who's a few rows down from me who I heard talking about astrology one time. We don't have to put this in. I don't know if she's a fan of the pod or not, but I heard her talking like, she's like, some people have like golf as a hobby. Some people have bird watching as a hobby. I love astrology. No, wait, she wasn't comparing it to hobbies. She was just like, I'm not religious unless you count astrology. And so she always follows up on that stuff. And yeah, I would love if she saw the people who are writing those astrology things, because I think they, I don't know, take her for a sucker.
So do you think like different major newspaper publications and magazines are kind of like different denominations inside of the Christian church? Like, oh yeah, they follow the whole like Los Angeles Times for their astrology predictions, but I'm more of a like New York Post girl.
Like one's of the Earth school, another one's of the Mars school of astrology, theoretical sciences.
You know what? I never really gave astrology much consideration because, you know,
It's bullcrap.
but there's just so many different branches that maybe I should really look into it again.
I don't know. Is it like Do they all get it from like the astrology people? I don't know. The Pope of astrology. Does he send it out to the New York Times and then the Chicago Tribune?
No, I think it's the editor of Cosmopolitan magazine. I think that's the
Oh,
Shoot, I would have thought it was the man on the moon. May 19, 1780. A heavy gloom fell over New England. Religious groups, known as the Shakers, believed that Judgment Day
are they
had
like
come.
the Quakers?
Are they also movers?
They're producers, actually.
Ah,
And so, through this unusual dark sky, they called it the Dark Day later. It was probably just a mix of fog and smoke from forest fires. But it sent out a religious sect on mission trips after this to spread their message of celibacy as the path to redemption. March 21, 1843 through March 21, 1844, William Miller tricked thousands of followers, also known as Millerites, when he declared that the world would end somewhere between March 21 of that year and the following year. When the year rolled over and nothing happened, he decided it was probably going to be, like October 22 of 1844. And then Jesus failed to arrive for the second time. And they called it the
Oh
Great
my
Disappointment.
gosh.
And then some Millerites left Miller's religion and formed the Seventh-day Adventists.
No way.
Nice.
oh. It's... See, I'm imagining like an Arrested Development situation. It was October 22nd. They had their big banner up, and then it says the Great Arrival, and then the next meeting they have, they crossed out Arrival and they put Disappointment in there.
In 1914, Charles Taze Russell, the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses, predicted... sorry. In 1876, the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses predicted that Jesus would come back in 1914. And since that prophecy failed, they've predicted at least 7 other occurrences that Armageddon would occur. And still, he has not come back, and the group is now best known for going door to door, handing out pamphlets, and denying transfusions of blood. We all know the most famous one, December 7, 2012. The Mayans predicted the end of the world, but really they had just run out of room on their calendars, and they made a movie about it, and it wasn't good, and the world is still here. So those were times that the world almost ended, but due to human error, it didn't.
That's why.
Human error.
Yeah, if there was no human error in their calculations, it's like that episode of
Yes.
Parks and Rec, where that one group always tries to run out of the park for the end of the world, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I miscalculated," and then Ron sells them all flutes.
I love that episode.
So moral of the story is, your math isn't as good as God's math.
Shout out.
The end of world situation that I chose is called Coronal Mass Ejections, or CMEs. And if one of these happen in just the wrong way, it would be very catastrophically bad. But I don't think it would end the world. I guess it's a bit of an exaggeration. But we will get to how it would end some worlds. It's less interesting than I made it sound. So CMEs are like solar flares, but much larger and much faster. Basically what happens is the sun's corona, so kind of imagine the sun and then block out the sun. And then it's that aura that's around it. It's a bunch of plasma. It's kind of like that faint aura that goes around the sun.
Well,
Go ahead,
sorry, is
Chase,
that
you have a
the
question?
you're talking about the outer part or the inner part?
So there's the sun, like and then there's this sort of faint aura around it. That's like the plasma that surrounds it. Like the sun is made of plasma as well, but then there's also an aura of plasma that surrounds the ball of plasma.
Like plasma gas.
Yeah, plasma gas.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like if you had an aura of odor around you, that's not
It's like Pigpen.
Chase, but
you
yeah,
read
it's
my
like
mind, Brad.
Pigpen, but that is kind of them. basically it bursts forth and shoots forward 1 billion tons of solar plasma in any one direction. And I'm not exaggerating when I say 1 billion tons. And sometimes these can be the size of the sun itself. So CMEs travel outward from the sun, usually at speeds of 300 kilometers per second, but can go as fast as 3,000 kilometers per second. And if they're a slow one, they can fill up half the volume between the Earth and the sun.
What about the fast ones?
Whoa. That's...
I don't know. It's a really big area, and it can take 1 to 1.5 days to pass over Earth.
Whoa.
If it's a slow one.
That
that's
is
how much
frightening.
there is.
When was the last time this happened?
Well, the thing is, these are actually somewhat common. They aren't always super big. I mean, relatively to Earth, they're very big, but they're also far away, and they're not always directed at Earth. So some of these really powerful ones can happen when the sun is in quote-unquote solar max, which happens every 11 or so years. And then also really powerful ones can happen when these shock waves form from CMEs, which is, and I quote this because I didn't exactly know what it meant, these shock waves can happen when CMEs travel faster than the quote solar wind plasma's fast mode wave speed, which is basically the space equivalent of the Earth's speed of sound.
Oh, so it creates like a sonic boom, but it's a solar boom.
Yeah, it's like an airplane breaking the sound barrier. And then when that happens, it sends forward this shock wave, and it's not good if it hits Earth. Luckily, we have, a magnetic shield in a way. So, unlike Mars,
Yeah.
which is partial reason to why
No
everything's dead.
atmosphere.
But even given our protection and our distance, if a really bad one hits, it could be potentially devastating. So in 1859, a really, really big one hit that the telegraph machines that were turned off turned back on. And the telegraph machines that were on started on fire.
Oh.
A study by the National Academy of Sciences says if a really big CME hit, like the one in 1859, it could cause $2 trillion in damages and could take 4 to 10 years to
Whoa.
recover. And the blackout could last months or years.
That is bad.
No.
Yeah.
Would we be able to predict this, like, coming and turn off our grids?
Well, there is... In February of 2014, someone published a paper trying to predict. They went all the way back, like 50 plus years, looking at all the CMEs and trying to extrapolate and say, here's the percent chance that a 1859 sized CME will hit the Earth in the next decade, and they put it at 14%.
Whoa.
They are unpredictable, though, so it could be wrong. It could be 50%. Who knows? But so back then it would, turn telegraphs on, but today it could affect satellites. It could affect astronauts. We don't really care about them in this episode, though, because we're talking about the Earth.
They left. They're dead to us.
They could affect. Yeah, exactly. A bunch of betrayers. Power grids, perishable food, and medication.
So if my internet doesn't work, I turn it off, turn it back on. The solar flare things would turn it off. We just need to turn it back on and it'd work, right?
I mean,
What if my internet was off when it hit, and then it would be okay?
Only
it wouldn't
yours.
start on fire.
it's less of your internet provider. It's more of destroying
Just
infrastructure.
plug my Ethernet into a tree.
There you go. And if there's no internet, then no one could listen to Significant Brothers.
No, that's the real problem.
And that would
Which-
be sad.
That would be the end of some people's worlds. So basically, the Earth itself will be fine. It's just humans who may be doomed for a while. But the Twitterverse, the blogosphere, the Facebookian supercluster, they'll be kaputs for a bit. So, moral of the story is download all our episodes, press it onto vinyl, and somehow get your vinyl player to play without electricity, and then you'll be A-okay for the blackout of who knows how long.
You should hand crank that sucker. It'll work without electricity.
Once upon a time, in 1996, the Earth was very close to ending. Not really, but it could have gone, no, like nothing could have gone bad, but it was just a very close call, but also not very close. So there's this big comet called the Hyakutake. Anyways, I'm not going to say that again because I'm just going to mess it up every time. But, so if a comet, like a big comet were to like hit the Earth, for it to like have a really big effect, it would have to be 1 kilometer. And this, well actually one of the biggest ones was the Hale-Bopp, which was 37 miles across.
Whoa.
Which is,
gosh.
That's really huge. Like, I was like, holy cow, think about that, like, crashing into Earth. That's crazy.
The size of a small moon.
So.
Now, when you say it would have to be a kilometer, like, a kilometer in diameter, and then, like, before it gets burned up by the atmosphere, like not one that's a kilometer before the atmosphere, but one that's a kilometer after it goes through the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That would be deadly.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. No. Good question. Good cue. This one was not that big. It was it was 9.3 miles across. So it was like 15 kilometers. But it was one of the closest ones. It was a lot closer than the Hale-Bopp one. And it was discovered by an amateur astronomer. Yeah. Amateur astronomer.
Cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
But it was discovered by a guy that was just like an amateur. He was just looking out his telescope. And it was 13 times closer to the Earth than the Hale-Bopp one. And
when was this?
This was in 1996.
And you said 13 times closer?
Yeah. But it was still, like, really far. Like, that, like, sounds really
so
close.
It wasn't, like, in danger of hitting...
You could, like, see it, like, through binoculars, and it was, like, visible to the naked eye for 3 months. You could, like, see it.
Whoa.
Last thing. And this comet passed within 0.1 astronomical unit of the Earth. Which sounds, like...
Isn't...
really close, but that's like
it's not that close.
It's
right.
not. It's really like that's a long ways away. Moral of the story: I should not be an astronomer because I don't know any of this stuff, the technical
or
stuff.
an astrologist.
Or an astrologist.
What I have to talk to you guys about happened in the year 2000, and I think all of us, it turned out to not be a problem, so everybody put the tinfoil hats away and felt very silly for a few days about how much ruckus was caused about this particular issue. But I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't have put your tinfoil hats away because you were kind of right. I'm talking about Y2K.
Whoa.
So, for those who don't know, Y2K was this thing in computers where, this is pretty general, but like you'd have dates stored with 2 characters, so like 2 bytes of data instead of 4 bytes of data. So like 1970 would be just a 70 because that was a lot of data for computers to store back in the day. So they were like, we'll save space by just doing 2 characters instead of 4. and that'll make a huge difference, and the Earth's not going to last till the year 2000 anyway. I'm just kidding, that's not what they thought. But they didn't think it would be a problem because 00, 01, 02, it'll work out. But it turns out that it didn't work out. It did work out in the sense that people had wild predictions that there would be like missiles launched, like pretty much everything that worked on a computer. Worst case scenario, it all breaks, and so nukes will be launched, missiles will be launched, the internet, which was in its early stages, wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to have electricity or pay your phone bills. Pretty much all the bad things that could have possibly happened, stuff that Kray described, are things that people predicted would happen for Y2K. Most of them did not happen.
Most of them?
A good chunk of them didn't happen. A lot of it seemed like wild speculation. In fact, it was such wild speculation that a lot of the world spent a lot of money fixing computer programs and like operating systems that used 2 bits of data instead of 4 to store the date. But there are a lot of problems that didn't get solved because there were actually like some nuclear reactors that like detected radiation. They broke. Like they just couldn't detect radiation. It was like the only reason that was significant was because that's what people were worried about, of like nuclear power plants blowing up out of nowhere.
Wait, so so they broke during 2000?
Yeah, it was like things used to detect radiation in nuclear power plants did not work.
Did they know they didn't work?
Yeah, and it was like, that'd be like, I don't know, the speedometer on your car not working. Like, oh, we should get this fixed, but not like my car is going to blow up.
So you're saying these detectors broke because of Y2K?
Yeah. Yeah, because they were, the way that they stored the date, it rolled over to, so I don't know exactly how, like, the, what the date had to do with it, but it rolled over from 1999, instead of the year 2000 it rolled over to the year 1900. Sorry.
And they didn't have nuclear stuff back then, which is why I didn't detect anything.
Nobody listened to Brad, that's not true. But, so yeah, that's the problem, is when you hear the year 1999, December 31st, 1999, rolls over into January 1st, 2000, you have 2 zeros. Is that 1900, the current century we were in, or 2000, the next century that we are going to? And so, like, a lot of things that would store dates didn't work.
Wow, like, in my mind, I would just think this would be some software patch or something,
Yeah, if only they had predicted it. Well, I mean, and they did, but like, not everything runs on the same software, and yeah. So, that's it actually worked, I guess, in reverse, but it was like I don't know exactly how these systems stored data, but another thing that happened that was affected by Y2K was a customer at a video rental store in New York had a bill because he kept a video for 100 years too long. His bill was $91,250.
Oh, it's so great.
Yeah, and so I guess it was because there was a difference of 100 years. Like, if it did the Y2K thing, it would have just been 100 years in the past, but that's a lot of time. So, huge difference in dates.
Funny.
Yeah.
I wonder if that happened with the library, too.
I'm sure it did on some level, especially if like people are trying to save space. So the world didn't end. We're not all running around looting and murdering people as a result.
Speak for yourself.
But there's something that might happen in the year 2038 that is just as severe, if not more severe. So to give you some background, like Unix time or Unix systems, what a lot of computers run on, start counting if they're on so like if it's a 32-bit computer, it uses like at most 32 bits of data. So like the date or the seconds are are running on like 32 bits of data. Like that's a 32-bit computer, is like that's what it can store. And so the year that all the Unix systems started in, or at least the date that they reference, is January 1st, 1970. And so if you have like 32 bits of data, that's like 2 to the power of 32. That's about 2,147,483,647 positive values from January 1st, 1970. Like if you're counting it in seconds, which is March 19, 2038 at 3:42 and 7 seconds a.m. And so at that time, computers will stop working. They'll roll back to 1970 because they can only store so much data. So if they're all counting in seconds, eventually it's going to run out. Like numbers go on forever, but memory doesn't.
So these bits, they're different from like, I can't just say I'm going to get more bits from the cloud or whatever. Like it's different from hard drive space.
Yes, because it's not, I mean, like the problem isn't it storing 2 billion characters. What the problem is when you like count, if you have like 32 bits, like 0000, 33 zeros, and then or 31 zeros and then a 1, that's 1 second. And so then 30 zeros and then a 1 and then a 0 after it is 2. And so you can only do that so many times, and you can only do that about like a little over 2 billion times before everything's a 1. And then when everything's a 1, they've done every single possible combination, and then it rolls back to just all zeros, and then you start over. So like if that's like the number counting thing, yeah. So if you have a 32-bit computer, that sucks. But a 64-bit computer is good for 292 billion years.
That's a significant difference.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're fine. Y'all are fine if you have that.
Jeez. We'll all be dead by that point. I mean, I'm not just talking about us. Like, I mean humanity. That's crazy. Okay, I think my computer's 64-bit, so I don't have to worry, right, Chase?
You do not have to worry unless you're like great to the power of 100 grandchildren want to have your computer.
But do any of us have to worry that, like, are there any of these vital systems that rely on these 32-bit computers?
Yes. So I think I want to say it was 2014, but somewhat recently, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, it has a 32-bit computer system running on it, and you might be thinking, what's the big deal? It's not 2038 yet. But if you leave that plane running for 248 days consecutively without turning it off and then resetting it, the engine will shut down. Because it counts every 100th of a second. So, like every 100th of a second is 10 to the 32 seconds is like the 2.1 billion number that I read. So, because it counts that, so because it counts it like every 100th of a second, 10 to the 32 bits of data is enough data for it to be like, I don't know what to do with all this, and it has like an integer overflow.
Shoot.
Yeah, pretty bad. So they would crash and burn. And so like that's just another example, because like, yeah, you can count every second, but you can count every 100th of a second if you want to. I don't know why they do it, so they can like get more intel on the status of a plane. I have no idea. So
have they tried 60? Have they heard of 64-bit? I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah. So I mean, it's what might be for affordability in the short term ends up being bad in the long run if you want to make it to 2038. Like everything uses, not everything, but a lot of things use 32-bit, like little robots, just because it's like, what would they do with all this like temporary data? And so the thing that you guys might be most affected by, because I don't think I fly in a 787. Maybe I do. But one thing that I think we're all affected by is if you make it to the 22nd level of Donkey Kong, you hit a kill screen.
Oh.
Too much data, and it pretty much the game throws an error because it's like another integer overflow, and so that's the furthest you can make it in the game. And so in theory the game's supposed to be able to run forever, but like if you're good enough, like I am, I get to the kill screen all the time. It just throws off your game and kind of throws off the rest of your week, to be honest.
That's I think that also happens with Pac-Man too.
It does. Yes, it happens with Pac-Man. It happens with Duck Hunt, Galaga. It happens with a lot of games that like store data and they don't put like an artificial end in the game, so it forces the computer pretty much to think of an end because it can't hold any more of your high scores, Brad. So that's kind of a problem, and so it's like it hasn't become a problem. It's become more of a culture in the professional Donkey Kong circuit, because you have to think of how can you fit in more points that you can score in like the limited amount of like levels that you have. Like in the Pac-Man one, half the screen goes to just like random numbers and like the fruit, and it just throws like stuff that it's already thrown at you before, but you can't go over there. And it's a little, I mean, for the average person, they're not really affected by that. But in fact, the 787 Dreamliner might actually affect you more if you fly on planes. Moral of the story is 1100 Frogger.
I like it.
That was a great moral.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you would like to subscribe to our newsletter, you can find us at tinyletter.com/significantbrothers.
And you can now listen to us on Stitcher, and you can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Follow us on Twitter at Significant Bros, or you can find us at facebook.com/Significant Brothers Podcast, and give us a like.
And if you want to email us and let us know how we're doing, you can email us at sigbrotherspod@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening.
Now that our season is done, we are going to take a little hiatus, but don't worry, we'll be back in the future for some podcasting shenanigans. But we're going to try and release some off-season goodness, specifically some Dungeons and Dragons goodness. I will be the Dungeon Master. Brad, Chase, and Anna are going to fight their way through some adventure. Who knows what it'll be? I don't. But please look out for those. We'll be posting about it on our brand spanking new Facebook page, and it'll pop up wherever you listen to podcasts. We're excited to quest, and we hope you are too. Thanks. Then we'd have to preserve our medication like the pilgrims did by rubbing salt in them. The internet wouldn't... That was not true.
Rubbing salt and medication?
It was like, rubbing salt in your meat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I was being...
Another
Wasn't that a funny
way
joke,
that they would preserve stuff is they would like smoke it over a fire. So if we smoked all of our medications, I think maybe that would help preserve it.